Hey guys, welcome back to RTR. Today we are going to be replacing the front rotors and brake pads on this Ford F-150. This is a 2019 Ford F-150 Basic XL Edition, the 5.0 liter. So first off, we're going to make sure that we have all the tools we need. So we're going to be replacing them with the Power Stop Severe Duty Truck and Tow Brake Pads with the matching slotted and drilled rotors. So that's what's in that box, so make sure to have those. Some other tools you'll need: rubber mallet, flathead screwdriver, safety glasses or goggles, some rubber gloves, some sockets. This is going to be, we just used the 1/2 inch, some paper towels. We got some deep impact sockets for the lug nuts and also for the caliper. I had to get that off, and my size is a 21. We'll need some blue thread locker, some brake lube, some sort of long bolt with a washer and a nut. I'll show you what that's for in a little bit. Some work gloves, C-clamp, 4 inches I think is about as small as you can go. Brake cleaner, we got the tire iron, we got a breaker bar, bungee cord, wire brush, ratchet, and then a couple just basic wrenches, your jack, a jack stand, and then some torque wrenches as well. So these are not exactly the perfect tools for this job, but it does get it done. I don't have specific tools for a lot of things, so this is kind of what I use. So it'll be some sort of variety of all these tools. So always keep your bag close by with extra tools in it. So if it doesn't work, then you can grab something that can work. So the first thing you want to do is find yourself a level surface. You're probably going to be on some sort of pavement or cement. I'm working with what I have today, so we're out here on the sand. Pretty level though, so you're going to want to chalk the back wheel. So whatever wheel you're working on, this is the front driver's side, so you're going to want to chalk the back passenger side. So I already did that. So now you're going to want to get your jack and your jack stand underneath your vehicle. So if you look underneath your vehicle, so this is on the F-150, there's going to be a little arrow on the frame here. So that's exactly where you put your jack at. So, and then we're going to put the jack stand literally right next to it. So since I'm not on pavement, again, I'm just going to have a board just to make myself a nice flat surface. So it's a lot easier if you have a full jack, but today I'm just using a small hydraulic jack. And then make sure you can put this all the way up as high as it can go. And then now you can start jacking. Once you got the jack lined up, you're gonna, before you actually start jacking up the vehicle, you want to take your tire iron here and just break loose the lug nuts before you actually get the vehicle in the air. Once you got them loosened up, now you can get the vehicle off the air. So jack it up, make sure to move the jack stand up with it. And once you get the tire off the air, you can kind of let this down just a little bit, just so it's sitting on the jack stand before your jack doesn't have to take all the brunt. There we go, and you just leave them both in place. Now that you got the tire removed, we're going to be removing the caliper where the brake pads are. So what you're going to want to do is take your 1/2 inch socket and remove this bolt right here. They're going to be kind of right next to these boot things. So there's a bolt here, and then down here there's another boot. There you go, and there's another bolt. So remove both of those. You can kind of do them at the same time, just so the whole thing might just fall off. So just kind of do the bottom one until it's loose, and then do the top one when it's loose. And then you're going to want to have your bungee cord ready. So take your bungee cord and probably hook it to like something like this. And if it's a longer one, you can loop it around a few times. It makes it a lot easier once you get the brake pads off. So you can kind of loop it up and around here a couple times just to make it shorter for yourself. Because then the point is to make sure that when you get this off, it's not going to be hanging by the brake line here. So we're just going to loop this around a few times, and then we're going to take those 2 bolts off. So actually, before you start removing those, it's a lot easier to actually turn the steering wheel. So turn the steering wheel so the wheels go this way. So just remove the bottom one first, and then they'll just be hanging by the top one there. So you can hold the whole thing just in case it decides to actually fall off on you. It should still be held in by the pistons, but take it out slowly, and there we go. So it should be loose, but it might not come off. So sometimes it's still stuck on a little bit by the piston. So if you take your flathead screwdriver and just stick it in there and kind of just push backwards a little bit, that'll usually be enough to make it kind of release from the brake pad. So on the F-150 there's 2 of them, so do the top and the bottom. Just go slow. Slowly keep prying it in a little farther, and it should release it. There we go. And as I said, this will be hanging from the brake line if you don't hook it up. So you either got this hole here that you can hook it onto, or you can go through the holes down here as well. So anything that kind of keeps it out of the way and keeps it from hanging off there. So now, next thing, you can either remove the brake pads now if you want to, or you can keep them in, but we're going to be removing this whole bracket, the caliper bracket that the caliper sits in. So now it's going to be these 2 big bolts back here, and that's where those sockets come in. Mine's going to be a 21 here. This is kind of a double 2-in-1 here from Lexavon. So this is what I got, so this is what I'm going to be using. It makes it a little bit longer than I would like, but it does the trick. So that'll fit onto there, and what you're going to need to get yourself is a breaker bar. This is a 24-inch breaker bar. They're like $40, but very worth it. Otherwise, you probably won't be able to get these loosened. These are torqued to 185 foot-pounds, and they're also thread locked on there with a blue thread locker. So it's very tough to get off just with a regular wrench. You can use an impact wrench, but I'd really advise against it just because it might hurt the lug nuts. And then if you put them on with an impact wrench, it might be too much. So with a breaker bar, you can kind of go nice and slow and still get it loose. So once we get it loose, then we'll switch to something like this, and then it'll be a lot easier just to get into instead of using this big honker. So now that we got them loosened up, now we should be able to just go to a socket here, and hopefully that'll make it a little easier to get in there. Oops. There we go. And as you can see on there, there's some pink. That's the thread locker from before. So that's why it was so tough to get off. So and there you go. There's your old pads and caliper holder there. So remove that. Okay, so now that we got that part done, that's actually the easy part. Now the hardest part of this whole thing is getting your rotor off. If you're lucky, it'll just come off. So there's a few different ways you can go about it. So first off is just rubber mallet. You can take a rubber mallet and just hit, so you're gonna hit like in between the studs here. So you can hit there. You can also use kind of like a ball peen hammer as well, but rubber mallet is a little less abrasive. So, and if that doesn't work, then you kind of move on to your next thing, which you can use a metal hammer. So I'll just give it a few taps here in between again. And see if that does anything. Nope. Alright, so next step, you can probably try some WD-40, and you put them on each bolt here, and then around the well itself. So around here, because right behind here is where it kind of rusts and it welds itself to the back plate here. So you can put WD-40 on it and let it sit for a couple hours or overnight. If you don't have that time, we're going to move on to the next method, which is this bolt thing. So you can either try this method, which seemed to work for me on the other side, or I've also seen that you can use a blowtorch and a butane torch and pretty much heat this spot right here where you're hitting with a hammer, and that heat will make the metal expand, and it'll kind of crack the rust that's welded to the back, and that'll make that pop out. So let me get this ready and I'll show you what we're going to do. So this is the bolt that originally went there. So what you're going to do is find another bolt that's a little bit longer. I got kind of too long of one, but this will work. And just a little bit thinner than the one that was already in there. So get yourself a bolt like this, and you're going to put it through this hole here, and you're going to put a washer on just for extra measure, and then run the bolt on the other side which I think my bolt's a little flattened from me doing this on the other side. So bear with me while I get this threaded on. Okay, so now you can see what I got going on here. You got the bolt, you got the washer, you got the nut, and it's pressing against the rotor here. So what you're going to want to do is get yourself a wrench. Again, I said I don't have all the perfect tools for this, but this works. Some sort of vice grips to clamp down on that one. And then I have an open-ended wrench, which if you have a drill, it's going to be a lot faster, and a shorter bolt, it'll be a lot faster. So I'm just going to start turning this, and it's going to start pushing out on the rotor. So now on the other side, I already did that one. I had to actually rotate the rotor a few times and back this off and do it again. So the first time I wasn't really getting much. I rotated, I pushed it in again, and you started hearing cracking, like the metal was breaking back here. And then I rotated one more time. I kept hearing that noise, and then it popped off. So that's just the rust breaking away from the rotor. So just keep doing that around the rotor, and it should pop off sooner or later. And it's probably not a bad idea to wear safety glasses if you're doing this, just in case. And before you start doing this, if you want to put a few lug nuts back on, just in case it does pop off, it doesn't go flying. So put them on decently tight, so not all the way up to the metal, but just so it won't go flying when you're doing it. So, all right, there we go, guys. We're finally getting somewhere. I threw some WD-40 on the front just to see if it would help a little bit, and now we're starting to get the sounds we want to hear here. So, let's see if we can get it to crack again. There we go. That's the sound you want. That's the sound of the rotor coming off. So, just make sure you didn't put your lug nuts on too tight. So you might need to back those off just a little bit. And keep plugging away. There we go. Alright, guys. That completes the hardest part. The rotor is heavy, so there we go. Got her off, guys. Alright, got the bolt out. So now what you're going to want to do is grab yourself a wire brush. Hopefully you got a better one looking than this, but and we're just going to clean up this whole area here. So just scrub and get as much of this rust off as possible. So you want a nice smooth flat area for your new rotor to sit against here. Okay, now we're ready to reinstall everything. So this is going to be my front rotor here, and it says this is from the power stop. They write right on it, front driver's side, so you know which one this goes on. So we're going to peel that sticker off, and then we're just going to spray it down with brake cleaner, because there's some oils and stuff on it that they send from the factory. So you're going to spray that on there, and then you can just wipe that clean or just let it dry, either way. And then you're going to flip it over and do the same thing to the other side. And what you're going to notice with these is they actually have your holes for where the bolts come from, but they're also going to have these two extra ones here. So these are for next time when you want to take off your rotors, you just put a bolt into that and you screw it in, and it's actually just going to push it itself out instead of having to do the whole bolt thing like I just showed you. So that'll make it really nice next time that you want to replace your rotors. So now, if you want to, you can put, it's a product called anti-seize, and you can put it in between the bolts here. So the next time you take it off, it'll keep it from that weld, from getting welded to there. Okay, so now that you're ready, you can install your rotor. There we go. And you're gonna want to grab a few lug nuts and just put them on, just to hold that in place while we get the rest of the hardware installed. Make sure it's seated all the way back. There we go. Okay, now we can move on to the brake pads. Okay, so the first thing you're going to want to do is actually open up the brake fluid reservoir up in your engine. So we're going to be pushing these pistons back, which means the brake fluid is going to be going back up into the reservoir. So we need to open that up because it'll be too much pressure otherwise, and it might pop the top off. So what we're going to do, open that up first, and now what we're going to do is actually push these pistons back. So they do make tools for this, of course. I do not have one, so that's where the C-clamp comes in, and 4 inches is about as small of one as you can get to fit perfectly around this thing. So what you're going to want to do is open this thing as far as it can go, and you're going to want to take yourself one of your old brake pads and sit it in there so it's kind of flush against these pistons here. And you're going to want to put your C-clamp around that. I do 1 at a time. Some people can do 2 at a time. I find it just a little simpler to make them go in 1 at a time. So, and I put the handle out this way. It actually makes it a little easier. So you're just going to start squeezing now and go slow so the piston has time to retract itself back in. So you squeeze and wait a little bit. Squeeze and wait a little bit. So we're going to do the top side for a little ways, and then we're going to move down to the bottom one, and then we'll move back up to the top one. So, and there we go. As you can see, now they're pretty flush with the pistons are pretty flush with the caliper there. So we are done with that, and now we'll move on to getting the brake pads ready. So this is your caliper here, or caliper holder, and this is what holds the brake pads. So now what you're going to want to do is take your wire brush again and clean off these spots where the clips sit that the brake pads sit on. So, and you can clean this thing as much as you'd like, because there's usually a lot of grime on it. So we're going to clean this up a little bit. Okay, so now in order to reinstall it, we're going to do the opposite of what we did before. So this should just fit right in here. And we're going to have to get our bolts back out. These were the bolts that had the thread locker on it again. So now make sure to line it up, make sure that it's sitting good and it's not like going to be rubbing against the rotor at all, which is looking pretty good. So now that that's good, let's go get the thread locker. So we're going to put it exactly where they had it. So it's going to be, because it's not going to be way at the end, it's going to be right where it's going through these parts here. Whoops, yeah, this part right here. So as you can see, the bolt goes into this, so we want it to be locked into this middle section here. So we're going to kind of goop this up right where they had it. So this is the blue stuff, so it's not permanent, but it will hold. So let's get that one started. All right, then I'm back to my ratchet to tighten those up. So just tighten them as far as you can get them by hand, and then we're going to actually torque these things, and you torque them to 184 foot-pounds. So a lot of torque, so you need a big torque wrench in order to get that poundage. So make sure that your rotor can still spin there, so it's making clearance there, so that's good. So now we'll grab our torque wrench and torque those down. All right, so you get yourself a big torque wrench. This one's from Lexavon, very good company. So we're gonna do 184 torque pounds. So you're gonna make that go all the way up to 184 and get cranking on it and see if you can get it to that specification. So, all right, there we go. All right, moving right along. Now we're on to the brake pads themselves. So this is where your rubber gloves come in handy. So you can do this in either way you want to, but we're going to replace the pin bushings here. So with Power Stop, they actually send you new ones, so we're going to replace those. And then you're going to need your whatever brake fluid or brake lubricant you want. Just something silicone will work. So what we're going to do is just pull straight out on your pin. So this is your brake caliper pin. So what you're going to want to do is clean this off, which you can just remove this whole piece now because you won't need that anymore. And I'm just going to wipe this completely off here. And then you can inspect it, make sure there's no rust or anything on it. So there you go, that's what it looks like. So now what we're going to do is put some new lubricant on it. This stuff is purple. So, so you're just going to dab generously on the whole thing. Just don't put it on the end. So when you push it in, will make it not be able to go all the way in. So just put it everywhere, but on the end. And you can kind of just rub that in. put your new rubber boot on. If you push that all the way up, it should click into place like that. And there we go. You should be good to put that back in now. So again, just slide it in and just keep pushing until you hear click. There you go. That boot should come over that, and there you go. You got some good movement there, and you can kind of pick up what's left over and use it on the next one. So now with the brakes came this stuff, so you can use this or the stuff that we just used there. So either way, this will be used for the brake pads themselves. So we're going to lube up these flanges here, just do the whole way around on both sides. Just don't get any on the front side of the pad. So first off, you're going to want to get the new hardware, and this is your new clips. They should come with your brake pads, and they'll just clip into all your spots here. So there we go. 1, 2. So they just have a flange. This flange will go to the outside, and this clips onto the inside. So kind of clip that into place, and it should hold itself. There we go. So now grab yourself a brake pad, and you really don't need a ton of this. So just a little bit like that. And you're just going to want to go on top of the brake pad, around the back, just this whole flange itself. And that's going to help that move on the metal part there. So there we go. Just like that. And then it's ready to go on. And there's really only one way for it to go on, so you can't really put this in the wrong way. So just push that in, and there you go. And now what you can do is put the caliper back on. So now that we've already compressed the piston, so it's ready to accept the new thicker brake pads. So we should just be able to slide this right over top of it. Make sure to remove your bungee cord if you haven't already. So remove that, slide that in. You're gonna have to slide these top parts in just because it will hit that. So it might feel like it's not fitting right, but it's because it's hitting those. So there you go. And now replace those 2 bolts. And you can just do those hand tight for now. You will be torquing those down to 27 foot-pounds. So there we go. So now all you got left to do is put the tire back on. So you can remove these lug nuts now, because your new rotor should be held in place now. And you're going to want to remove your bungee cord before you forget, so make sure you get that out of the way before that gets left up there. So we got the bungee cord out of the way. Now we're going to turn the steering wheel back so it's straight again. Alright, so just put your lug nuts on here, and we'll do it in a star pattern. So start here and then just go down and then across from each one. Just tighten them up enough until the wheel starts spinning. And then we're going to lower it down, and then we'll torque them down to 150 foot-pounds. And just make sure that your rim here in the middle here is sitting flush with your rim, because if it's not sitting flush, that means your rotor's not sitting right. But usually when you tighten all these lug nuts, it'll kind of push it back into the right spot. So as long as that's kind of flush, you should be good to go. So now we're going to lower the jack, and we'll torque these things down. Alright guys, there you have it. That's it. Make sure you close your brake fluid reservoir up top again, and you should be good to go. Now all you got to do is the bedding process. So if you're not familiar with it, this comes with the power stop brakes here, and this will show you how to break in your new brake pads and rotors. So just do that and you should be good to go. Dispose of your stuff with brake fluid and anything lube on it responsibly. A lot of it is toxic. So yeah, wear the rubber gloves and dispose of it properly. But hope you guys found this handy. If you have any questions, let me know.